Yeah, so it's research proposal time and things are about to get serious real quickly. So I'm just going to put my glasses on so I can see a lot clearer. Okay, there we go. We're ready. Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Hope you guys are doing well. If you're new to my channel, my name is Samuel Dada and I'm a PhD student at the University of Cambridge, studying biological sciences. Yeah, actually I'm in the Department of Chemistry now, so I might as well just start saying that. In the Department of Chemistry, studied biological sciences. That's what I'm doing in the Department of Chemistry. Anyway, let's cut to the chase. This video is basically going to be guiding you into kind of leading you or guiding you on how to write a research proposal. Yeah, so research proposal is quite important. You might do this at various points within your academic career. Some people, when they're applying for a PhD, they might have to write a research proposal to apply for a PhD. Some people do it whilst they're already doing maybe undertaking a program, a PhD program. So you might have to do this maybe towards the end of your first year of your rotation. And some people you might just need it later on, maybe when you're applying for maybe postdocs or writing grants, research grants. So I think this is quite fundamental to have if you're going into the realms of research and academia, because it's quite important and fundamental if you know how to write a research proposal. Some people might not even have to do it at all. They might just apply for a PhD that has a project already outlined there, and the research proposal and the guide of that project is already stated out there. Everything's been planned for, and you might be lucky not to have to do it, but I still think it's quite fundamental for you to know how to do it regardless of the case. So before writing your research proposal, I think it's very important for you to have your ideas and also for you to plan properly. I think these two things you need to do very well before you actually take that step to actually maybe start writing or putting things together in terms of your research proposal. So obviously a PhD, it's basically doing a PhD means that you're going to be delving into something that's quite unknown, something quite novel, but also hand in hand you have that chance to maybe make a difference in the world. So obviously start with the idea, something that you're passionate about. So when you're writing a research proposal, you need to already have an idea in mind of what you want to tackle. What is the problem? What is the underlying problem that you want to address during your PhD? So that's quite fundamental, like I did say in my why should you do a PhD video. It's quite important for you to have reasons why you want to do a PhD, in order for you to have the passion to kind of write and even plan or even know how to write or go about writing a research proposal in terms of how you're going to tackle it. So I think the first stage is obviously having that idea, having that kind of a title. What do you want to address? Remember, it has to be quite specific also, because during your PhD is a very, it's a marathon, but actually in a greater scheme of things, it's actually quite a short period of time for you to address something. So you need to make sure that you're being very specific in terms of the question that you're asking. It needs to be quite narrow in terms of the greater subject of things. Obviously you have a great big problem, but you want to tackle a specific issue within that great big problem. So this is what you need to think about before obviously writing or planning your research proposal. So obviously that comes with a great idea. So the first is the idea. What is the problem that you want to address? You know, that's the first question you need to ask yourself. What is a pressing issue? What do I want to do? What do I want to kind of make a difference in? When you figure that out, that's great, but I feel like you would already have figured that out anyway. So next step is obviously planning, and I think this is quite important because it's not really, I don't think I'll advise you to go straight into just obviously writing once you get that great big idea. No, you need to plan, but within that planning step you need to read a lot. Read a lot of papers. So I would advise you to read loads of reviews, because reviews give you kind of an overview of what's kind of going on within that kind of niche, narrow subject of what you're looking for or looking at tackling. So I would advise you to always read reviews first, because, and obviously the most recent reviews that are probably out there in the journal articles, read the reviews first. and you'll be able to see what is kind of like what progress has been made within kind of the subject that you want to kind of tackle, or the question you're trying to tackle. What progress has been made, what has been done, what hasn't worked, what has worked so far, so you know how you're going to actually plan and tackle this problem that you're kind of setting yourself for your PhD. So I think it's very, very important that you read a lot of reviews, because this might actually even change the direction of the question that you initially have. So reading reviews gives you a greater insight into what progress has been made within that field of subject. So that's why I think it's very fundamental for you to read again loads of reviews. Number 2, now you can get started. You can basically put down on a paper, okay, what is my question, what is the gaps within the knowledge within my subject, how am I gonna maybe brief bullet point of what has kind of been done. You kind of have, by now you kind of have this overview of what has been done, what has been, you know, achieved within your subject, and what further question needs to be answered. And now you can probably go down to writing. So first of all, like I would say, when you're writing your research proposal, you need to start with obviously your title. It needs to be short, snappy. It shouldn't be too long. You shouldn't be writing a sentence in your research proposal as a title. It needs to be very short, snappy. But the second point, in terms of when you're writing, I feel like this might be quite controversial. I feel like you need to actually state out your aims first. The reason why I say this is because when you're obviously applying for a PhD and you're writing a research proposal, I understand that you're probably submitting it to someone who kind of has an overview of that area or that subject area already. So if you kind of write your title of your project, which is quite general anyway, and then you write your aims, list out your aims, this could be like maybe half a page of what you want to try and do, then the researcher or whoever you're submitting this research proposal to knows what you're already trying to do before actually reading your whole research proposal. So you're giving him kind of a snippet of what's kind of to come, or what you want to try and address, before actually going into the body of the research proposal that you've written. So that's what I would suggest, that you should write your aims first before even going into your introduction. Simply because, like I said, if you're writing a normal kind of paper, you're gonna have to write an abstract, and the abstract gives, you know, you the guide, or kind of like a summary of what is to come. So you kind of know whether you want to actually read more of this paper, or you just want to chuck it in the bin or move on to the next one. So I think a research proposal, especially when it comes to being in an application kind of setting, it's quite important for you to state out your aims first, because then that already sets kind of the guide for the reader to know whether this is something they're interested in or something they would like to read further in. And then obviously you can move on to the next step, which is writing your introduction, which is kind of a holistic background, giving a kind of a holistic overview of the background of that topic that you're trying to address, in terms of the question that you're trying to address. So introduction, and within your introduction, you're going to have to go back through your reviews kind of thing. So you're going to basically address what has already been done within the subject, and kind of draw the reader in gradually to take them on kind of a journey of, this is what has been done, this is the problem, this is a great big problem, this is what's been kind of done so far, and this is what I am going to try and do. So it's kind of a stepwise kind of fashion that you're going to take this. You're going to go, what is the general problem, maybe first paragraph or whatever, and then you could have a couple of paragraphs with other reviews and other maybe studies embedded in it, validating what has kind of been done in this subject, why is this a problem, and what is kind of the limitations that have been occurring within this subject. And then now you can go into, you know, maybe the angle that you're going to try and take this in to kind of address this question and why this is quite important. So it needs to be kind of like a story. You're meant to kind of tell a story, so you can keep the PI or whoever's reading, the funding body, engaged in what you're saying or what you're trying to tell them. And then you can basically go on to the next step, which is the experimental kind of methodology, should I say. And this is where you're going to basically address how you're going to tackle this problem. And it's quite important for you to obviously state how you're going to tackle this problem in a very chronological order. I think this is quite important. Even though you're not going to probably state the time or timings within this kind of section, it's quite important for you to write this in a chronological order. So you're still kind of taking the reader on a journey of like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. If this kind of works, then we can go on to this next step. If this doesn't work, then we're not going to go on to that step or whatever. So also that brings me on to the point of obviously within your methodology stating limitations. I think this is very, very important as a researcher. It's very important for you to obviously state the limitations to maybe your methodology. Where are you going to find problems? And I think it's quite a honorable thing to do if you state your limitation. I know this is something that a lot of articles and research journals don't do. You know, you don't want to say what went wrong. You don't want to write what went wrong or what could go wrong. You just want to write all that's good. But I think it's very, very important for you to state your limitations, especially it's a research proposal. Where are you going to come across roadblocks? And this is quite good because then the reader knows that, you know what, you're thinking quite in depth about your project. You know kind of where you might find problems, where you might find issues, and you're already thinking ahead of how you're going to tackle these issues. So this is quite important for you to write in your kind of research proposal, but I think you should write it as you kind of go in terms of the different sections, in terms of your methodology. Yeah, I know. So after obviously writing your methodology, yeah, I think the next step is obviously kind of concluding why this is quite important, why your way of researching this idea or this question is going to be good for the kind of the greater good. What is the fundamental aspect? What is the implications of this? Why is this beneficial to the greater world? You need to create kind of a summary of why you think your research proposal is really good, and why your methodology is amazing, and not amazing, but I mean just validating everything that you've kind of stated. I think it's just important for you to kind of give a clear overview and validation as to why this research proposal and your methodology and your approaches are gonna make a difference in the greater scheme of things. And then after that, you can kind of write kind of or create maybe a mind map or a kind of a table or timeline table in terms of how you're going to address each specific questions. So in terms of your methodology, I would actually even advise you to break it down to very small aims. Okay, you're going to tackle this first, tackle that first. So this gives you kind of a way of actually targeting several aims at different specific points during your PhD. And yeah, when you put this on a timeline, it just makes a lot more sense to be like, okay, in first year I am gonna kind of tackle this objective or this aim, or I'm gonna address this question within my methodology, and yeah, kind of give a bit of lag and stuff like that. So it's just quite nice to have a timeline, so you know the person knows that you're kind of looking ahead into the future and kind of have a brief glimpse of how long things are gonna take, and maybe how long things are maybe not going to take, and maybe where you might have time to kind of even write. And you know, it's just really, really important that you kind of have a timeline, so the person knows that you have this overview in your head and you kind of know what you're doing. Okay, so having said all that, I think the next step after probably writing your research proposal is to look for a PI or supervisor that could support you in terms of your research ideas. Maybe whether it's a research group that probably looks into things quite similar to what you want to look at. I think this is very fundamental, and also ensure that this PI or supervisor is going to support you in your ideas, not kind of, you know, looking for you as, not taking you on as kind of a labor force, I would say, because sometimes, you know, PIs and they're just looking for people to kind of work for them. So you need to ensure and be strong in your ideas and ensure that you look for a group or a supervisor who's going to support that idea, who's going to encourage that idea, and who's going to help and give you maybe constructive criticism about maybe things that you could improve in terms of maybe the methodology, or maybe a different angle you could maybe take this research question into. So it's very fundamental that you look for a research group that is going to do that for you. You don't want the PI to dictate how your PhD should go in terms of if you're creating a research question. You need to use them as a support. You need to use them as a stepping stone, a support mechanism to help propel you to achieve your research question, essentially. So I think this is very fundamental, especially for people who are obviously deciding to do a PhD where they've set out a question for themselves. And this is quite difficult. This is very challenging, and I've done it. I've done it recently. I didn't do it straight away, but I had to do it during this first year of my PhD, kind of write a research proposal. And I'm very glad and happy that my PI has looked at this and said that, yes, this is amazing. I've had like conversations with other people within the lab who have been like, okay, these are things that you can improve on, or these are things that you can think about. And this is great, because it's not like, oh, I don't think this idea is good. It's all good telling someone that this idea is not good, but how are you going to actually maybe improve it? What are ways that you can improve this idea? Because obviously, for the fact that you've written this up, you must have seen that there is a fundamental question or fundamental problem, or there's a kind of a lack in understanding within a specific subject. So that's the reason why you're delving into it, if you're planned and if you've done your research properly. So let's go over all the points in terms of what you need for your research proposal. It all starts with the great big idea. So firstly, I want to cure cancer. Yes, that's a typical one for you. Secondly, plan ahead, read loads and loads and loads and loads of reviews around the topic, so you kind of know, give yourself an overview of what kind of the ongoing research is within the topic, what are the progresses being made, what has been achieved, what has not been achieved, what are the loopholes, this and that. Just be very critical. Third, start writing. So start your question, make sure it's very short, simple title, doesn't need to be long. Secondly, state your aims of your research, just given kind of like an overview of what you're trying to kind of address. So you give the reader kind of a summary before they start reading into the whole shabam. I don't even know what hands I'm on right now, but anyway, next you write your introduction, which gives you your background. So now you're kind of critically analyzing different ongoing research and kind of giving a nice storytelling into what you're gonna try and address. So it's kind of like poo. And then next I forgot what's the next one. Methodology. So make sure you break this down into various sections of, okay, what you're trying to address, how you're going to address it, experimental approach, or whatever approach that you're going to use. Yep. Thirdly, a nice big summary in terms of what implication this has in the greater, wider things and how is it going to improve knowledge and understanding within that research field. And then lastly, put maybe a nice diagram of a timeline in terms of how you're going to approach this, how long it's going to take, blah blah blah. You can even put budget, but I wouldn't advise you to do that because, I don't know, depending on what your field is. I know my field in science is quite expensive. And then lastly, look for a supervisor that is going to support your ideas, encourage you, and give you constructive feedback. Yeah, that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. So if you've enjoyed it, please put the thumbs up, like, subscribe, whatever, do whatever you want, comment what you want to see some more of below. Yeah, guys, stay blessed, stay encouraged, dream big, and keep being inspired. So goodbye, see you in the next video. Bye.